This is the fifth gate, Kammasaka Zen, known as Shakyamuni equanimity. This is Dharma talk number 6. Dharma talk number 6 is the interconnection of the fifth ox herding picture, known as taming the ox, and the fifth gate of Kammasaka Zen, Shakyamuni equanimity. As I've mentioned in previous Dharma talks, the ox herding pictures are a series of 10 images with accompanying verses used in Zen Buddhism to illustrate the stages of the practitioner's journey towards enlightenment. And each picture represents milestones on the path to realizing one's true nature. And it's often symbolized by the ox in the metaphor of the ox herding picture, taming of the ox in the fifth. So the fifth picture, taming the ox, focuses on the steady progress of disciplining the mind. Now, it's partially understood, but still prone to distractions and wanderings. And this stage represents the cultivation of awareness and the control over the mind, leading to a state of harmony between the ox, the mind, and the herder, the practitioner. Similarly, in Kammasaka Zen, a monastic path that follows the footsteps of Shakyamuni Buddha. The teachings emphasize the integration of our daily practice with inner equanimity, grounded in the fifth gate of realization. So the fifth gate is associated with the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, and is one of equanimity. It's a state of balance where emotional turbulence and egoic impulses are calmed through the wisdom of non-attachment and the wisdom of insight into impermanence. There is a deep interconnection of these two Zen teachings, the taming of the ox and Shakyamuni equanimity, and how they complement each other in the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey towards liberation. These teachings can be applied to our daily life. They can be applied to our meditation practice, and they can be applied to the realization of an integrated, harmonious existence. But before we explore the fifth picture and the fifth gate, I think it's essential that we understand the significance of the ox and the Zen teachings. The ox in the ox herding picture symbolizes the mind, or the self that seeks fulfillment in worldly desires and suffers from delusions. So in the early stages of practice, the ox is wild and untamed, representing the unenlightened mind, which runs after desires, emotions, and distractions. The ox herder, symbolizing the practitioner, must search for and capture the ox before they can begin to lead it to clarity and understanding. Therefore, in Zen practice, this struggle represents tension. Tension between the mind and the constantly seeking external validation and the deeper, more authentic self. This self which remains obscured by ignorance and egoic attachment. So the ultimate goal of Zen is to unify the mind and the heart in a state of clarity and peace, thus transcending the duality of the self, leading to the attainment or the achieving of enlightened awareness. So at the fifth stage, taming the ox, the practitioner has already found and caught the ox in previous stages, which symbolises some degree of mastery over their thoughts and impulses. However, the journey is far from complete. The ox still resists, it still wanders, and occasionally rebels. So the herder must cultivate consistency, patience, and discipline to train the ox, leading it to a state of calm obedience. So in essence, this stage mirrors the process of developing inner equanimity, which parallels the teachings of the Shakyamuni in the fifth gate of Kammasaka Zen. The fifth picture in the ox herding series, Taming the Ox, marks a pivotal moment in the practitioner's journey. After finding and catching the ox, the practitioner now begins the slow and steady progress or process of taming it. The ox was once wild and unruly and represents the untamed mind, impulsiveness, distracted and driven by egoic desires. So taming the ox, it requires persistence, it requires mindfulness and dedication. But it also signals a deeper or a deepening of self-control and insight. And it's at this particular stage the practitioner has already experienced glimpses of the ox, the glimpse of the ox's true nature. Recognize that beneath the mind's turbulence lies a core of calm awareness. And the ox's resistance is symbolic of the residual attachments and habits that continue to pull the practitioner back into old patterns of thought and old patterns of behaviour. So taming the ox is not about force, but rather about cultivating a gentle, firm approach, allowing the ox to follow without resistance. And then in practical terms, taming the ox is often equated with deepening of our meditation practice. Here, the practitioner begins to no longer struggle as intensely with the external world, but now can face subtler changes of the internal mind. So the ox is no longer lost, but it needs to be trained and focused. And it's at this stage that the practitioner learns how to cultivate mindfulness, returning repeatedly to the present moment, particularly when the mind is wandering. And then as distractions arise, they are recognized. They are recognized and released, creating a growing sense of balance and harmony within the practitioner. So this stage is crucial. It's crucial because it teaches the practitioner to recognize that even when the mind is tamed, disciplines and diligence are still necessary. Because the ox is still prone to distractions, still prone to desires, but the practitioner is now equipped with the tools to help bring it back into focus, bring it back to its focus, mirroring the equality of equanimity found in the fifth gate of Kammasaka Zen. Because the fifth gate is the focus on embodying the teachings of the Buddha, particularly the practice of equanimity. And equanimity, in the Buddha's sense, is simply the ability to remain calm and balanced amid the fluctuations of life, free from the pull of desires and aversions. It's not a state of passivity, but rather a dynamic and centered response to the world. And it's grounded in wisdom and compassion. So the Buddha, the historical founder of Buddhism, serves as an archetype for the Zen practitioner. His life and his teachings exemplify the virtues of non-attachment, the virtues of wisdom and deep inner peace. So the fifth gate of Kammasaka therefore encourages the practitioners to simply cultivate these same qualities within themselves. Just as Shakyamuni sat beneath the Bodhi tree and achieved enlightenment by understanding the nature of suffering and the causes of suffering. Then as practitioners, we are urged to develop insight into our own minds, recognizing the impermanence of all things and the emptiness of the self. So equanimity is closely related to the taming of the ox, as both processes require the development of inner balance and the ability to simply let go of attachments. In the fifth ox herding picture, the practitioner learns to guide the ox calmly, without force or frustration. Much like how equanimity teaches the practitioner to respond to life's challenges and to respond to them without being swayed by emotional extremes. And then when life presents difficulties, or when life presents temptations, the practitioner, grounded in equanimity, does not react impulsively or get lost in the distraction. Instead, they remain steady and focused, much like the ox herder calmly guided the ox down the path. So the Buddha's equanimity arises from his profound understanding of the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. And it's by fully internalizing these truths that the practitioner can cultivate a sense of peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. And it's in this sense the fifth gate of Kammasaka reinforces the lessons of the fifth ox herding picture. The taming of the mind leads to the cultivation of equanimity, and equanimity allows the practitioner to capture or continue guiding the mind with patience and wisdom. So both the fifth ox herding picture and the fifth gate, they both emphasize the cultivation of discipline. They both emphasize the cultivation of mindfulness and balance. And then in our daily practice, these teachings encourage us to approach life with calm, steady mind, even when we're faced with the challenges or the distractions of life. And then in meditation, taming the ox can be seen as a process of staying focused on the breath, or another point of concentration. But the mind will inevitably wander. But we, like the ox herder, gently bring it back to the present moment. And then over time, the mind becomes less prone to distraction, and a sense of inner peace begins to develop. And this mirrors the cultivation of equanimity, where the practitioner learns to remain calm and undisturbed by the fluctuations of thoughts, emotions, and external circumstances. And it's in daily life that these teachings can be applied to how one responds to stress, to conflict, or to desire. And then rather than reacting impulsively to emotions or situations, we learn to pause, we learn to observe, and then respond with clarity. So this practice of mindfulness and equanimity helps to create a sense of harmony within oneself and also with others, and reducing suffering and simply promoting compassion. And then furthermore, taming the ox and cultivating equanimity, it can be a lifelong process. Just as the ox herder must continue to guide the ox, even after it has been tamed, then we as practitioners must remain vigilant in maintaining equanimity, because old habits and attachments seem to have the possibility to resurface at any time. And the teachings of the Shakyamuni Buddha remind us that enlightenment it's not a static state, but rather it's an ongoing practice of awareness, compassion, and wisdom. So, to round up, integration of the fifth ox-herding picture, taming the ox, with the fifth gate of Kamasaka Zen, Shakyamuni equanimity, offers a profound roadmap for the Zen practitioner's journey towards the attainment of enlightened awareness. And both teachings, they emphasize the importance of discipline, the importance of mindfulness, and the importance of the cultivation of inner balance. While taming the ox focuses on the process of guiding and controlling the mind, the fifth gate teaches us to embody the equanimity of the Buddha. So to remain calm and centered amidst the challenges of this life. And then together, these teachings encourage a holistic approach to Zen practice, where the practitioner learns to navigate the complexities of the mind and the external world, and do so with grace and wisdom. And then by taming the ox and cultivating equanimity, the practitioner moves closer to realizing their own true nature and living in harmony with the world. So the journey is one of ongoing practice, but with patience and mindfulness and dedication. The ox and the herder, the mind and the self, it all becomes one. I certainly hope this talk has been a benefit.